welcome everybody. I am Mikaela Pisani. I am from Uruguay. I work at Rootstrap as the head of the data science team. Rootstrap is a custom software development agency that combines creativity, technical expertise, and process driving to develop our products. I am also co-managing director of Garcintec in Uruguay. Garcintec is a not-profit organization that is focusing on encourage women in tech. In Uruguay, we focus on children and teenagers. And today, I'm here to talk about bias in data science and why we need more women in data science teams to prevent bias. So nowadays, more and more we are trusting on algorithms to automate our decisions. And this is a fact that we need to take care of that about the bias in the algorithms. So have you ever wondered that these decisions might affect certain group of people? Have you ever wondered about the errors that algorithm has? During this talk, we are taking care of that. Here, let's take an example. We can see a recent example of Google Translate where we translate one paragraph from a gender that doesn't have, from a language that doesn't have gender specific. We translate it to English, and the translator do the best to guess which is the gender associated. Here, we can see how harmful it can be. So during what does it mean that Google is wrong? I don't think so. The issue here is that Google is making the best to guess the gender based on the probability. What is more probable? In the data, it says that it was generally more frequently that the man was the one that studied and was clever and the woman was more associated with cleaning activities of the house and taking care of the children. So it's the historical data that shows that. So in this talk, we are defining what is data science, what is bias in data science, and then what are the factors that influence in bias. After all, knowing what are the factors, what can we do to avoid the bias, and especially why team diversity can reduce bias. So what is data science? Data science is a mix of skills. It's not only about algorithms. You need to understand the business, to understand the problem that you are trying to resolve. You need statistical skills to understand the algorithms and know how to configure them. And then you need analytical skills to be able to communicate the outputs and to analyze the outputs of the algorithms. And what is machine learning? In data science, we use machine learning to learn from the data, learn patterns that let us to predict, to detect opportunities or detect anomalies in the data or finding groups. So now that we know what is data science and machine learning, what is bias? Bias is about errors in the assumptions that we make over the data. So the algorithms learn from data, the data can be biased, but also the humans that develop the algorithms can be biased. Bias is something that we cannot completely remove, but we have to take into account certain considerations to reduce it. So what is algorithmic bias? Is a term that refers to the fairness in algorithms related to certain group of the data. Generally, it's around minority groups that bias is present, since minority groups are the ones that are not well represented in data. So bias can take different forms, like gender bias, race bias, etc. So now we are going to take a look to different examples to make sense about this issue and how harmful it can be to a certain group of people. In this example, again, in Google Translate, I invite you to open Google Translate and copy this phrase. In this example, we are going to translate from English to Bengali, that it doesn't have a gender specific in the language. So if we translate it again to English, we can see that the gender is changed. So what is happening here? The translator is trying to do the best to guess which is the gender. As we said before, historical data says that it's more likely that a woman is the one that cooks and the man is the one that builds the house. Google is fighting against bias and is trying to resolve this problem. In this example, we can see how Google is resolving the problem for one sentence when we need to guess which is the gender, instead of putting the most likely, like in the example before. It just provides the two options, feminine and masculine, for the translation of the sentence. Another example of bias is in GPT-3, that is a language model that generates human-like tests. And in the paper, OpenAI says that this algorithm has issues related to bias. And they provide this example that was asked to complete the sentence. He or she was very, and we can see the output of the most present adjectives. For the women, we can see that the adjectives were more related to beautiful or gorgeous, while the men were more diverse. Another bias that this model presents is shown in this figure. The model was asked to complete this sentence about Muslims, and we can see how harmful bias can be. Bias is not only present in text, it's also present in images. In this example, we provide two big companies that have bias in images. The first one was the Twitter image cropping algorithm that bias favored Caucasian people, and Google Photos had bias against certain group of people in the algorithm for tagging images. So why it's important to take into account this? Because nowadays we are taking decisions with algorithms, and this can be harmful for certain group of people. Machines are deciding if you are a candidate or not to a job offer. If you if you are probable to commit another crime or not in a chat, or in healthcare, if you have to receive a medical treatment or not. So these are real cases, examples that have bias. So now that we already know what is bias and why it is important to consider it, we are gonna take a look what are the factors that generate bias. So first of all, the data is biased. The data, we only train our model with a set of data, and this data might be incomplete or that don't represent the whole reality, might have missing information, or maybe it's imbalance. Imbalance, it means that we have more information for one group of people than other. For example, for gender, we maybe have more information about men than women. The humans bias, also humans, the ones that choose this data and the ones that develop the algorithms and understand or take conclusions from the outputs of the algorithms are biased. So we need to take into account this when we are the ones that develop these algorithms or choose the people that are gonna develop. There are different types of bias. These are the most common. The ability bias is related to that we tend to overestimate. Answering an adjustment is that we always compare to a reference point. And representativeness is about the stereotypes. It means that we already have images or in our head about things. It's okay, it's how our brain works, but we need to be aware of that. So for example, if I ask you, think about a programmer, probably you will think that is a man behind a computer with glasses. This is our stereotype about a programmer. So it doesn't mean that it's wrong. What is wrong is to think that all the programmers look like that. So the issue is when the stereotypes becomes the single story to tell. So women are misrepresented in data. In data and also in data science teams. So we are missing their point. We are missing half of the population point. Let's take a look to some numbers. So in the field, we are only 22% of women. The researchers that participate in papers are 13% only, and the ones that participate in conference, 18. So these numbers are saying that it's true. We are very few women in the field. So what about just removing gender from data? That will be the solution, will too much simple. And unfortunately, it's not like that. Gender is present in all other attributes in the data. It's hidden in the data. So the algorithm might learn certain patterns about the data regarding to gender, and removing it from the data, it doesn't guarantee that our algorithms won't suffer from bias. So how can we do it? How can we reduce bias? There isn't any law to follow, but there are certain things that we can take into account. First of all, understanding the provenance of the data, it's very important. So validate the source of the data. Then get more data to get a more complete set. Balance your data, so make sure that you have enough information for each category. Be aware that you are biased. Your team is biased. So validate your assumptions with the data. Don't assume something because it's obvious. Just go to the data and validate it. Analyze your results, so the output of the algorithm, not only in overall error, but also in each category. Don't be happy when you get a good accuracy or a good error with your test data. Instead, go outside and test with real people. Be careful how you show your conclusions, and use diverse teams to reduce bias. So why diverse teams? The diversity in teams always in any area is beneficial, because people can collaborate with each other, take different points of views, and complement. This leads to higher performance, more innovative solutions, and build more robust solutions. So with diversity, we can reduce our stereotypes. If we don't have diversity in teams, we will missing opportunities. So it's good to have more diverse teams. Why in data science? Data science is in every area, in every field, there is data and more data. So whether you are in tech or not, whether you are a woman or not, it's very important to take into account the bias in data, so you can create more successful solutions. So our mission is to create more inclusive code. So who codes matters. Getting more women into the teams will reduce bias. Tech needs you just as you are. I invite you to get interested in what data science means and bias. I will leave you some recommendation talks about this issue in my slides, and I am open to any questions now. Thank you very much for listening.